Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the Threat Detection Delivered Roadshow. My name is Cecily Russell, Trade Show Events Manager at Critical Start. And joining us today is Critical Start's Chief Technology Officer, Randy Watkins, and Microsoft's Senior Technical Specialist, Trevor Stewart. Today, they will be talking about ways to maximize the capabilities of a fully deployed Microsoft Security Suite. Before we get started, I have a couple housekeeping items to mention. First, this session is being recorded and you will receive the recording within 24 hours post-event. Everyone is automatically muted. If you would like to ask a question live, please click raise hand and we will bring you up on stage. Otherwise, place your question either in chat or Q&A and we will be monitoring this in the background. We welcome all questions and want this to be an interactive session. Lastly, to keep us engaged and having fun, keep a lookout for the polls that will be launched throughout the session. Interact with these polls and ask questions via the chat to increase your chance of winning a gift card. Be sure to click your answer only once. Winners will be selected at random and announced on this call. If you are a winner, be on the lookout for an email from me. Now, without further ado, I will turn it over to Randy and Trevor to introduce themselves and get started. Randy?
Thanks, Cess. My name is Randy Watkins. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Critical Start. I've been here going on 12 years, and I'm responsible for everything from kind of company strategy to working with our partners in the channel, discussing the latest and greatest problems to solve with you, our prospects and customers, and working with our integration partners, including Microsoft. So really excited to kick this off. Trevor, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Randy. Good morning, everybody. My name is Trevor Stewart. I'm a Senior Technical Specialist here at Microsoft. Been at Microsoft for about 6-7 years now. Been in the IT and the sysadmin and cybersecurity space for about 15 years. And I've personally worked with Critical Start on numerous instances for both the incident response as well as the managed XDR offering that they are just legends at. So I'm super grateful to be here and looking forward to sharing more during today's chat. I'll go ahead and move on into some of the things that we've seen out just in the field from a cybersecurity standpoint, specifically around our Microsoft security tooling, with a little bit of background on just kind of where we've seen practitioners really point their focus, where we see Gartner and Forrester also kind of coming into the fold, and then also making sure that from an overall end-to-end protection perspective, that you understand what offerings are available from a Microsoft security stack standpoint and how you can operationalize them into your SOC. But before I get into that, just because it is a little bit early, at least on the West Coast here, it's 9 a.m. We're one coffee deep personally. We want to go ahead and make sure everybody's awake and ready to go. So we do have a poll question to kick things off. So to begin, the first question will be, what is your favorite type of animal? This particular poll, the winner is available to win a $25 gift card to Starbucks. So if everybody can go ahead and use the poll options in your appropriate window, we'll go ahead and get those going, and the winner will be announced, I believe, at the end of this session. For me, it's definitely not going to be a cat. Cats scare me. They're too quiet and too sneaky for me, and they just pop up out of nowhere. Probably a dog person simply by marriage, because my wife has a pocket bully. So I would definitely put in there a dog if I were to put my vote in. Brett, it looks like you're asking where the poll window is at. And it looks like Victoria was able to help you out. Yeah, all dogs. I completely agree. The more I have a dog, the more I would definitely echo that as my sentiment as well, Mark. Awesome. So while you're still putting in your poll responses, I'll go ahead and get moving into this thing called the Spectra Alliance. So a little background for you. Most of you who are, attending today's session are probably coming from either a sysadmin, system engineering, or maybe even a C or D level position within your organization. And traditionally, what I believe we're seeing, or what we have seen maybe the past decade, has been that a lot of decisions from a security tooling standpoint are made on, I want to make sure I have these point solutions that are absolutely the best of the best, specifically for what they are made to do. So in the example, maybe from an email security perspective, you've heard of Proofpoint, or from an IDP standpoint, you've heard of Okta, Netscope for any SASE solutions, and of course, CrowdStrike, which we'll be talking significantly about today on the endpoint security side of the house. This best of breed approach was big. It was huge. It was really kind of a CYA that a lot of organizations decided to choose so that if they were to get audited or maybe something negative happened that had to be publicly announced, they can ensure that they are able to say that, hey, we did indeed have the best in-breed solution available for us to attempt to block what, maybe didn't get blocked. On the Microsoft side, what we've really led with for years, and really dabbling in the past, 5 to 7, maybe 3 years specifically, is really making sure that enterprises, really look away from going point solution to point solution to point solution, simply because of the operational headache and the potential gaps that you could have in your organization that could come about when you have 20 different tools doing maybe 6 different things, right? And so we've always been able to really kind of lead with having the best of solution or the best of platform approach. And this is huge because what that means is that you're able to look at your whole security landscape, from your identities to your applications to data security, which is huge, cross-cloud, on-prem, whatever your scenario might be, and making sure that you have the signal sharing and the ability to see all this in a comprehensive single solution. What we've seen is that while the best of breed is still definitely an option, in order for security practitioners and analysts to really get the best particular solution in front of them to work and operationalize day to day, that we're even seeing the growing trend of moving to a best of solution. However, what we've seen is with that alliance specifically is that those 4 major providers and vendors out there actually work together so that their integrations collectively are better and easier to be more of a best of solution type of approach. So it's really interesting to see how the tides are really shifting, and even these point solutions out there recognize that they're unable to do what Microsoft can do without creating a specific alliance to partner together to really attempt to have the integration that we actually offer out of the box. The other area that you typically would hear is that Microsoft doesn't do security. And being a security practitioner myself, I would say I would echo that probably 7 years ago. That would be a total, almost laughable joke if you were to say, Trev, I'm going to do a complete Microsoft stack end to end, quite frankly, because we didn't really have it. We had a very disconnected experience. While we might have had solutions, they weren't necessarily mature enough to be, the front lines for our customers. But with the changing of leadership within our own organization and just what we're seeing in the cybersecurity landscape specifically, in the investments that we put in internally in engineering, a lot of those solutions that used to be, hey, these are some stragglers, good idea, good attempt, Microsoft, but you're not right there. We are now seeing us lead these particular areas from a Forrester standpoint in all 8 waves. So if you're looking at security analytics, if we're looking at email security, endpoint security, EDR, of course, data security, and SIEM and XDR, we are in the top right in Forrester. And that says a lot. It takes a lot to get there. It takes a lot of time and trust and feedback and customers to go ahead and onboard for you to gain that type of leadership level. In addition to that, if we can go to the next slide, we can go ahead and talk about, really that defense in depth and best of breed approach that I was hitting on a moment ago. If we look at what defense in depth is, I think a lot of us know that we probably have come from a background that we have to look at our network first. While that might have been super important traditionally, maybe pre-COVID, the pandemic really brought so much transformation in about a 24-month period that we had to literally look at not just network and VPN and firewalls, but we had to look at our endpoints, we had to look at our emails, we had to look at our identities, our applications, our data, our APIs, and everything in between. And so it became increasingly difficult for us to look at individual tools and make sure they're all pruned and tuned and refined for each layer of your defense in depth stance. So if we look at what that looks like really from a let's just say, best of breed standpoint or traditional standpoint, you would have multiple different tools in that stack to say that, hey, I'm defended at every layer of where the attackers could potentially hit me. We've seen that attackers normally would just try to hit something from email. That's like 95%. But we're seeing a massive change where email is not the only entry point, right? It's not. We're not just going to go ahead and just hope that you have a hole, and you will have a hole in your email protection, that a user who might not have the most education or awareness is going to click something, and now I have a foothold. We're seeing that attackers are hitting every single medium in your potential environment. So they might just want to target storage. They might want to hit the data. They might want to hit the identity and just try to brute force hit an identity. Of course, they're still going to hit email. They're going to hit your endpoints. They want to see what's going on in your cloud environment. They want to understand what your users are using from the SaaS perspective. And it becomes very difficult to defend each of them excellently. So from a Microsoft standpoint, we want to highlight on this particular slide the awareness for folks just like you and others that we can share this out to, that for every area in which an entry point can be made from an attacker, that you have a defense layer from Microsoft available to you. And so we really want to look at this holistically from as far left as we possibly can, from like a DevOps standpoint of what your developers are doing, where your code lives, how that's deployed and made into a live application, how your users are communicating either from Office 365, email, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, you name it. What's happening on the endpoint from an endpoint security standpoint, and of course the ever important identity, both in the cloud and on-prem. So that's going to be the outside in. And then also what's growing is the inside out. And this can be malicious, which happens a lot. Maybe you have a disgruntled employee. Maybe you have somebody who's getting paid by a nation state to go ahead and do some exfiltration, but I'm just a normal employee of Microsoft. Why would Microsoft ever give something away? Or we have those accidental data leaks, which happen all the time. You just misclassified information. Maybe you're sharing it inappropriately by accident or intentionally. So you want to make sure you're looking at what's happening inside your org and where it's going out as well. So when we look at the numbers, I think a lot of the conversations around changing vendors or changing your particular security stack comes down to cost. And there's many ways to go ahead and look at cost. Of course, you have the actual solution itself or the tools themselves, but then you also have to go ahead and talk about operationalization and efficiency. In today's world, when you take a look at the ability of your SOC, no matter how big or small, whether it's internal or outsourced to wonderful folks like Critical Start, we need to make sure that we have the ability to respond as efficiently and as quickly as possible. And so the speed of your ability to identify and remediate and evict is huge. And so when you start looking at the previous slide and the whole defense in depth aspect and what our tools can bring to the table, we're looking at an 88% reduction of time to respond to threats, which is huge. And then, of course, add on to not just the response, but investigation times. Investigation is super hard to do. It's very difficult to do. It takes extremely seasoned individuals to know what indicators of compromise or items within particular incident to really start tracking down to determine the thought process of the attacker. What were they going? How did they get there? What were they trying to achieve? And how can I lock that down? So those are big numbers, 88% and 65%. And then, of course, we have to look at the overall risk of different material breaches. So whenever you consolidate to remove that complexity, with obviously whenever you remove complexity, you're removing risk, 60% reduction of a risk, a material breach through automation and efficiency. Now, I know Randy's going to be able to show some really secret cool sauce from an automation and response perspective, so I won't steal that thunder. But just know that 60% will be directly seen when you start seeing what Critical Start can actually bring to the table with your Microsoft security portfolio. Additionally, the time to value, which is important. So we're seeing right now a 201% ROI over 3 years. That is massive. I don't know many other vendors that can offer, even in an alliance aspect, that type of ROI. That is huge. And then, of course, when we're looking at your SIM, a lot of your SIMs are going to be primarily a massive cost due to ingest as well as SOC time. So just purely endless time, eyes on screen, response, go do things. We're looking at, from a SIMSOAR and XDR perspective, a 48% less expensive option compared to maybe going like a Splunk or a QRadar or a system that's not natively integrated into your security ecosystem. I'll let you spend some time, when this is off recording, to look at these other numbers. But these are some big percentages here that I think really help tell the story of why there needs to be a thought shift in identifying how can I reduce my complexity, which natively reduces my risk and improves my efficiency through the proper tooling that's not only best of breed in their own right, but when they're brought together, it is literally the best of platform and solution. All right, Trevor talks a lot. Trevor talks quick. So I want to go ahead and take a pause here and make sure we're still all with me with poll number 2. This one, I believe, has a $50 gift card attached to it. So we're kind of going up, and just wait until you stay around for Randy. He's got the big bucks attached to his polls. But we want to know through poll, what is your current Microsoft license level? So this might look like an E1, an E3, an E5. Maybe you have some frontline SKUs. Maybe you're coming from an education or manufacturing background. There might be some different SKUs there. But definitely interested to know, what do you got with Microsoft today? Because what I think is helpful is because of that, we can determine, are you using what you already have? Are there opportunities potentially for bridging some gaps with some different SKUs and licensing options, et cetera? And between Microsoft and Critical Start, we can definitely make sure we can answer both of those questions respectively. Looks like we got some E5, E3 plus security. That's good. I'm going to recommend E5 or maybe even E7 when it comes out. We always have that joke. That'll be next year, right, Randy? We'll add the E7 as an option.
Yeah, bundle in 1 or 2 more SKUs and upcharge it another 10 to 15% per user per year. I am curious, though. I mean, everybody that's got the E5, and you can just drop answers in chat if you want to communicate on it. What's the level of implementation of those E5s? Are you using the full suite? Are you using all of security? Looks like, Steve, you're looking to add the E5 security add-on to your E3 licenses, another good option. We're seeing a lot of folks that have E5, but it's just underutilized. Mm-hmm. And that's just as big a problem as not having the product in the first place. I mean, now you're paying for it, but not utilizing it. So that's always a interesting look. Yes, you have E5, but how implemented is it?
Awesome. So the one thing I will kind of dabble in and lead off for Randy here is, what does it look like? And this is a beautiful marketing graphic. I can't take any credit for creating it. I don't got those skills yet. Maybe Copilot can help me. But on the left-hand side, we want to make sure that your existing security portfolio is being leveraged. So we want to make sure that you have the right pieces of the puzzle to protect your endpoints, identities, your cloud apps. And cloud apps is one of those areas that I think is overlooked. I was helping out a customer just a few days ago, maybe last week, and we were doing a review of their CASB solution. And in that review, they didn't see, but I saw that there was some potentially nefarious activity happening from the NT Authority system account, sending about 52 terabytes a day to a very high-risk SaaS application. I remember asking, has anybody looked at this? Has anybody investigated this? Because that's not normal behavior. And it just gets overlooked, right? So making sure that your cloud apps and the data coming from your users and devices is indeed genuine is huge. Of course, email security, that's always been a top of mind for practitioners for decades now. What about your documents? And then, of course, enterprise IoT. This can be, enterprise IoT devices, and then you can actually extend that on over to your industrial IoT pieces, as you can see on the right. So that's going to be more on the XDR side, your cross-platform detection and response. All this is going to be funneled into your SIM source solution, which for us is going to be Microsoft Sentinel. A lot of SIM providers out there don't have SOAR capabilities built in as part of what you pay for. But with Microsoft Sentinel, SOAR comes basically included. There are some asterisks there, but I mean, unless you're going over 40,000 different automated response activities a month, you're not paying for it. It's just built in. And that also comes with a deep threat intelligence, user entity and behavior analytics, and a bunch of other cool pieces to the puzzle that integrate into that, making sure that the fidelity in the incidents that are raised to your awareness or to critical starts awareness is something that they can act on or you can act on as quickly as possible. And then, of course, we want to make sure that from a CNAPP and overall cloud security posture management standpoint, whether it's AWS, GCP, on-prem, or anything in between, that you are taking a look at that posture as well. We see a lot of applications getting deployed insecurely, a lot of bad DevOps practices. So we want to make sure we can go ahead and button that up and put some governance around that from a CNAPP or a DevOps security perspective. What about your APIs, your storage accounts? There's so much to it. But when you start looking at all these solutions that Microsoft offers, you literally have a full circle of protection, detection, and response capabilities right there at your fingertips. That is just, it's unbelievable. And I say this not just as a Microsoft fanboy, but really coming from, being a deployer of those very popular third-party vendor tools. So I've seen both sides of the equation, not just the Microsoft side, but I've seen the CrowdStrike side, I've seen the Splunk side, and the QRadar side. But when you put this together, it's a powerful story and a powerful stack at your fingertips. On to you, my friend, Mr. Randy Watkins.
Excellent. Thank you, Trevor. And thanks everybody for joining. Again, keep the chat rolling. And if you guys want to communicate in there, ask questions, whatever, it's not just for the poll responses. And thanks again, Trevor, for going over the Microsoft value. I'm going to touch on who Critical Start is, what we do, why we feel we're differentiated in the market, how we integrate with Microsoft. I want to quickly recap kind of that last section, because we started off talking about the best of breed approach, moving to the best of platform approach. There's a lot of advantages there, not to mention the fact that most folks already pay for it. I mean, if you have that E5, that M365 E5 SKU, you already have the entire Microsoft security suite. And if you went to the Gartner SRM conference, which I highly recommend if you've not attended that one, their key message was all about simplifying security architecture and infrastructure. It was the fact that, 70% of organizations with over 5,000 users have 96 security products implemented. It's just way too many for folks to upkeep. So the idea is doing the foundations better and having 100% deployment of critical controls is more important than having all of the nuance, right? I mean, you need to have that cohesive security architecture, and that's what Microsoft is providing front to back. Now, we've been, how many security products is optimal? That's going to depend based on your organization, right? I mean, at a bare minimum, you're looking, like Trevor said, at identity, endpoint, cloud apps, and an XDR or SIM platform to bring them all together. But with the Microsoft Security Suite, you also get coverage for your servers, your workloads, your containers, your databases, your unstructured data. You get insider risk management, and there's a lot of functionality and capability available inside of that platform. My recommendation is implement the products that you're already paying for, then go back and assess gaps or where you want to augment. And that'll help drive more of a outcomes-oriented implementation as opposed to just a product gap-filling implementation. Now, Critical Start's been we've been a partner with Microsoft since Microsoft was the kind of punchline to the joke of security. Trevor said 7 years ago, probably not implementing Microsoft security enterprise-wide. This year, yeah. And if you look at the Gartner quadrants and the Forrester waves, they're top right for a reason. And if you're currently dual running them with, CrowdStrike or SentinelOne, or maybe you're using those on the endpoint instead of MDE and you're using MDI or something like that, Microsoft does go toe to toe in all functionality with both of those leading providers. And I can't think of a scenario where they don't surpass the functionality. So really bullish on Microsoft. And we saw this trend starting up, back when Defender ATP was released and included as part of E5. We said, hey, I think a lot of customers are going to go this route because when you look at who's using Microsoft, it's everyone. There's not a company that doesn't have some level of Windows inside of their environment. So we started to kind of code that way, building our integrations, aligning with Microsoft. We got brought into the Security Partner Advisory Council. We are an MXDR certified partner. We actually helped develop that certification. It is not an easy one to get. And we're also a managed partner. So managed partners ensure that we have, being a managed partner ensures that we have dedicated resources to us to help keep us aligned with Microsoft from a go-to-market product perspective, even escalations. We have massive escalation points internally, including CVPs as executive sponsors. So when you're looking for an MXDR provider to help you operationalize that E5, it's important to not just look for that MXDR certification, but make sure they're managed as well, so that you can kind of rest assured that we're staying up to date with the new functionality that Microsoft is pushing out. And that includes Copilot, right? We get questions all the time about Copilot. We are in the Copilot design program. It's not a thing yet, right? I mean, it's still in private preview. But as they release that functionality, it's going to be integrated into our platform. We're going to be leveraging it as part of our service. And the whole idea is to deliver simplified breach prevention, right? I mean, it is very difficult to have all of these products in your environment and to attract and retain headcount after you train them. So we want to deliver those outcomes without requiring you to have all of that expertise in-house, leveraging your existing security investment. We don't require another agent, another SIM, another network sniffer, anything like that. We're using what you already have implemented in APIs to kind of add that layer of expertise on top. Now we have a third poll. This one's, it looks like a $150 Amazon gift card, something like that. Do you currently use an MDR provider? Super easy choices. Yes, no, or no, but we probably need to. So curious where everybody sits on that, especially if you're in critical infrastructure, any sort of 24-hour operations. I'm always curious to see how are folks delivering 24-hour security. Typically it's on call, but if you're a 24-hour manufacturing operations, for example, on call isn't fast enough. You need somebody that can actually act on those alerts. So are you an existing MDR customer? Yes, no, or no, but we need to. And watch the chat for the winner to come up shortly. Now, Trevor laid out a diagram showing where Microsoft kind of intercepted malicious signal, or they could identify it, respond to it, detect it, whatever you want to call it. Critical Start overlays on that exactly, right? So obviously there's Critical Start for MDE. We do have a lot of customers who just aren't ready for full adoption of MXDR, and they're starting with MDR on the endpoint. Endpoint is best place for investigation, best place for detection, and best place for response. So we do have a small contingency that is endpoint only. Nothing wrong with that. Most of them have a vision or a strategy to grow into a true MXDR customer. We support Microsoft 365 Defender. When we say that, we're referring to the rest of the Defender suite. So Defender for Office, Defender for Identity, Defender for Cloud Apps, Defender for Office, which includes email. And then we have Critical Start's MDR for Microsoft Sentinel, which is all those third-party signals that you're going to want to ship into Sentinel as well. Right. So this is your firewalls, your VPNs. Essentially, we're saying we can sit on top of Microsoft to identify these attacks as they come in. Now, one attack that we actually did see, and this is actually a pretty common one, so it's not an attack, but rather the most common attack that we identify, leveraging email, compromise credentials, move laterally, establish persistence, and then kind of exfiltrate data. Well, with the visibility in Microsoft, we see that malicious email come in. We may not know it's malicious at the time, but we do see that there's a link. It does go through the error reporting, the automated investigation and response reporting from Microsoft, and we get those results. We also see anomalous user logins or geo-velocity violations, right? We see abnormal user behavior through Microsoft Defender for Identity. And then we see anything suspicious that's happening on the endpoint. Well, using that Defender suite, we can delete that email, see where else it is in the environment. We can disable that user account, revoke their session tokens, and log them off. So now that compromised user credential is no longer a threat. And then we can isolate any endpoint that user has been logged into, right? And that kind of eliminates the risk for additional persistence by other compromised credentials. So Doug Adams, congratulations. You will see something coming through from Victoria or Cecily. But we can really do end-to-end detection and response across all of those signals. And that's what MXDR is. MDR is kind of the legacy term. MXDR is Microsoft's specific term, really talking about how we're leveraging the power of the Defender suite along with Sentinel to deliver that end-to-end true detection, investigation, and response functionality. Now, how do we do that? This is our architecture diagram. I'm going to talk about some more of this stuff in depth, and I know I'm blowing through this information. Obviously, happy to set up a more in-depth and thorough one-on-one call, as is Trevor, to go through the individual kind of benefits of the Microsoft solution and how Critical Start leverages that. But from a high level, starting off on the left, we start with very deep API integrations. So one thing that we're not doing is ingesting the raw telemetry. Few reasons for that. One, Microsoft already has it. Two, Microsoft already knows what to do with it. And three, it takes us out of the scope for GDPR, CCPA, any of those privacy compliance requirements, right? We are ingesting the raw alerts or the actual alerts. What does that mean? That means that our API connections, they're used for a couple of different things. One, we do a configuration check. Garbage in, garbage out. We want to make sure your Microsoft deployment is set up to be effective at detection. That means we are identifying all the malicious behavior. Second thing, we push our detection logic into your Microsoft instance. We don't do black box detections where we ingest the telemetry and then do some magic behind the curtains and spit out some, ambiguous alert. We push all of our detections, native language, whether it's KQLs or advanced threat hunts, into your product set, right? You see exactly what we're detecting. We ingest those detections. And as we ingest those detections, we use those APIs for additional investigation, pulling information from those different consoles, and response, doing things like isolating the host, revoking session tokens, disabling user accounts, deleting emails, etc. So our integration is very API based, and we're also leveraging Sentinel the way Microsoft wants us to, right? Sentinel has a lot of powerful correlation capabilities. So we do bring all of the data into Sentinel along with any third-party data that you need. Now, we do a number of management capabilities on top of that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. Once all of the alert signal is brought into our platform, it's called Core. It goes against our trusted behavior registry. And that TBR is safely resolving any known good or expected behavior. We've seen it before. It's a false positive. It's normal for your environment. We safely resolve that based on our analysts already investigating that alert. We're not using AI. We're not using ML. Technically, it's a random forest classification model, but it's all based on what the humans have already seen, and they've resolved it. They've already done the investigation. They know that this is expected behavior. If there's any deviation from that, then it's a net new investigation, and we go through it. It's like the American justice system, but the exact opposite. We look at every single alert as if it's bad until we're able to prove that it's not. We do not arbitrarily accept risk on your behalf. Anything that doesn't match that trusted behavior registry as known good and expected behavior goes to our SOC for additional investigation, where they will either chalk it up as a false positive and add that to the trusted behavior registry. You'll never see it. We'll never see it again. They identify it as a true positive, in which case you can customize the rules of engagement. You can say, don't touch these machines over here. These are my PLCs. These are my historians. This is my CEO's laptop. But do isolate anything that's not these, right? And we will act on those. You can disclude, user accounts, IP ranges, subnets, naming conventions, whatever it is, but we will respond where we're able to. And then the last thing is we don't know what this is. It's not doing anything malicious, but we don't know it to be good behavior. So we need that additional context from you. And when we escalate, two things. One, the platform is 100% transparent. You not only see every comment that we leave, every action that we take, every investigation that we do, but you can see every rule inside of the trusted behavior registry, which there's like 80,000 playbooks. So the whole idea is radical transparency with risk reduction. That trusted behavior registry allows us to resolve 100% of alerts, regardless of criticality. So we do not care if it's a critical, high, medium, low, informational. We are ingesting it. We are resolving it, right? And that is within contractual SLAs of 1 hour TTD and TTR. From the point in time the alert hits our queue to the point in time an analyst has to have picked it up, investigated, and done something about it is an hour or less, right? Otherwise, we feel financial pain. We are the only MDR provider on the market to offer contractual SLAs around the resolution of any alert, let alone every single alert. And what that means is accountability with risk reduction. You get what you pay for, right? You're paying us money to perform a service. We're going to perform that service, and we're going to prove to you that we're performing that service. Now, once we escalate the alert to you, or if you just want to see how that service is doing, you don't just have to log into the portal. We also have a mobile SOC application on iOS and Android. Sorry, no Windows mobile support. But you can see everything on your phone that you can see on the web, which also means if we escalate something to you at 8 o'clock at night on a Friday, because that's when attacks happen, you can turn that into an 8 a.m. Monday morning problem by, logging into your phone. You see the escalation, you go through the analyst investigation, and then you use those APIs from your phone to respond to those questions. Will Critical Start provide a Microsoft Security Health Assessment to determine the gaps and provide recommendations? Repeat this throughout the year to validate posture. Yes-ish. So we absolutely start with an upfront assessment, basic configuration check to make sure it's set up to be effective. We also do have a professional services arm that will do more of that custom implementation where we're doing conditional access policies, reviewing different email exclusion policies, things like that. And then they can be called in to do those periodic checks. The MDR is more concerned with, is it set up to detect? The professional services will do more of the, is it healthy? Can we do more on the prevention side? Our MDR will 100% make recommendations across all of your security stuff, though. It's not just Microsoft specific. If there's a group policy that can be changed, if there's a firewall rule that can be added, if there's kind of best practices around privileged accounts, we absolutely make that known through our MITRE mappings or the mitigation mappings or just our kind of manual risk recommendations that are delivered through our technical account managers who are kind of assigned to accounts. Now I'll talk about our SOC. Our SOC is one of my favorite things to talk about. Make no mistakes, this is a service, right? Core, our platform provides tremendous value, but our SOC is the one using that to deliver the service that you're paying for. So a little bit about the SOC. SOC 2 Type 2 and PCI certified, those are table stakes. Yes, we have them. We have 2 SOCs. One is in Plano, one is in Lehi, Utah, right outside of Air Force Cyber Command. We welcome you to tour them. We're happy to bring in any customer for like an EBC. You can check out our SOC, talk to our analysts, meet our executive team, including myself. But we have kind of those 2 SOCs set up in redundancy, both in the United States. We have greater than 90% employee retention. That's my favorite stat on the slide. And that's a kind of an undervalued stat. If you look at retention, you can tell a lot about a company's culture and the quality of service you can expect. If they have a 60% retention, that means they're rolling out 40% of their analysts every year. What kind of service do you expect to get from that? We actually have a 92% analyst retention rate over the last 8 years. We've been doing MDR since way before it was cool, right? Before it was commoditized, before everybody had one, and it got kind of watered down. We've been doing MDR as a way to differentiate from MSSPs and provide true value to our customers. Myself and my counterpart on the delivery side, we both came from a practitioner background. I worked at a Fortune 50 insurance company as a security architect, and he built and ran the global SOC for one of the big 3 credit bureaus, right? So we knew what garbage looked like because we used it before, and we knew what we didn't want to do. So when we stood up this MDR service, we said, hey, we have to have accountability. We have to actually implement security, and we have to have a SOC that's going to stay. And we need to build a culture that's going to facilitate that. So we offer continuous training. We have 3 months of onboarding training before the analyst ever sees the queue. We also have career pathing built internally. And to provide those guardrails around quality assurance, we have two-person integrity on everything that happens. Whether it's an endpoint isolation or a playbook that gets activated, there's two people that are one to create it and one to review and activate it before anything goes into play. So really the SOC is a massive differentiator because of the expertise, the longevity, and then also the quality assurances that we put in place. MDRs can be just as disruptive as attackers if you don't get a well-trained and monitored security operations center. Now, it's going to feel a little weird to see these different logos on a Microsoft webinar, but we do support products outside of Microsoft. Like I said, we've been doing this for 8 years. Microsoft was not in the security game 8 years ago, right? We started off integrating with Silence back when that was good, and Carbon Black back when you could still buy it, and then Splunk back when it wasn't so expensive, but it was still kind of expensive. We've expanded that. We support CrowdStrike and SentinelOne, along with Palo Alto and Trend Micro. But really what we see is a lot of customers, and I think somebody mentioned this earlier in the chat, that have E5, they want to migrate to E5. Their strategic vision for their company is E5, but they have CrowdStrike today. They have SentinelOne today. They're using Overwatch or Vigilance, and they need everything monitored while they're doing that transition. Critical Start can not only help you with the monitoring of your existing products as you transition into the Microsoft suite, but we can assist with that transition into the Microsoft suite. So you have no gaps in coverage, no lapse in 24/7 monitoring. We're resolving every alert on both your legacy stack and your Microsoft stack within that 1 hour time frame in a way that's transparent and aggregates everything into single pane of glass. We bring together, you could have CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, Defender, Sentinel, Splunk, and Defender for Identity deployed all at the same time. It all comes into one place that's monitored by our SOC, and it all gets escalated back out. So a tremendous amount of value from supporting these other more point best of breed solutions as you transition into that best of platform. Now, we talked about Sentinel. The number one objection I get about Sentinel is the kind of real-time cost. Right? It's the unpredictability. So two things. One, we start off with a workshop to plan your deployment. What log sources are you going to bring in? What do you need to bring in? Right? Not everything is important. Not everything is relevant to security. So your WAF logs, real happy you have them. If you have to keep them for compliance, sure. Not terribly useful for detection and response. Your VPN logs, your firewall logs, critically important. Right. So we're going to start off by going through what log sources you should have inside of your Sentinel deployment. We'll break them into primary, secondary, and tertiary sources. And then we're going to do cost ingest analysis on a continuous basis. So Roosevelt, looks like you asked about, the kind of quarterly or throughout the year assessment. We absolutely do quarterly ingest cost analysis to make sure you're still on track to hit whatever that expectation is for Sentinel ingest, right? Do we need to look at different parsers? Do we need to change the logging levels? Are your log sources healthy, right? That's another thing that we're looking at. Do you have the right logs, and are they healthy as they come into the platform? That's how you're going to guarantee that ROI from your SIM and make sure you're not blowing that cost out of the water because, your network admin switched the firewalls to debug. And at the same time, put in a rule that stopped your on-prem Active Directory server from communicating with the log forwarder. So we are taking care of a lot of that administrative overhead that's associated with SIMs in general, and then wrapping it into the rest of the MDR service. Now, I briefly touched on the fact that we do have professional services, 100%, right? And they are PI and ESIF ready. If you don't know what that is, I believe, Steve, you said you were looking to add E5 security. Anytime you're looking at renewal or you're looking at upgrades, Microsoft has a bucket of money, and they may not like me evangelizing this so much, but I think it's a huge benefit that nobody else offers. It's called End Customer Incentive Funds, or ESIF. And essentially what that is Microsoft offering assistance by paying for somebody like Critical Start to come in and do some level of implementation. We know how to create the SOWs. We know how to get them approved. We can accept the funding from Microsoft and then do that implementation. And we can also do custom one-off SOWs. So if there's no ESIF available, no big deal. We can scope that out and help provide those services back to you to get you to a fully implemented E5 suite including displacing some of your legacy point solutions. Really, again, just driving that ROI through E5. 200% ROI over the course of 3 years it seems a bit conservative given how much is included with E5. We can 100% come in and rip and replace that security stack, then monitor it after the fact. So you're not just getting tools that are implemented, you're getting tools that are operationalized. And if you're familiar with CMMI, that is kind of the holy grail. You want this to be operationalized so it's really providing value, not just from a financial ROI perspective, but from a security risk reduction perspective. And that's what we're doing, right? We're helping you plan, we're helping you build, and then we're running it for you while providing that constant touch point of a assigned customer success manager with a technical account manager and our 24/7 security operations center. Now, I want to go into a demo real quick, but first I want to review a quick case study. Oil and gas company down in Houston, 5,000 employees. They started off on Devo and Palo Alto Cortex XDR, but they had a long-term strategy of moving to Sentinel or Microsoft in general. We're actually able to speed that up by about 1.5 years. Because we did the monitoring, we helped with the configuration. They did qualify for ESIF, so we did a professional services engagement, and then we folded in that Microsoft portfolio as we were monitoring their best of breed solutions and transitioning them over. So not only did they get implemented ahead of time, which saved them a ton of money on renewals for those kind of legacy products, and gained them favor with the CFO, which ended up resulting in an additional headcount getting assigned to them. But we did so without any gap in coverage, right? They maintained 24/7 operations, which for oil and gas, energy, healthcare, kind of critical, right? I mean, that is critical infrastructure. Lives are on the line, and that seriousness is not lost on us. Now, before I go on, I'll explain the control cost savings. So those numbers look a bit wonky, right? $6.3 million in savings. That is assuming that you need 24/7. So the minimum headcount you can have to get away with 24/7 is 12 for 3 shifts or 4 shifts of 3. We obviously run a lot more than that, but that's why it looks like $6.3 million in savings. Not only is it 24/7, but we're resolving 100% of alerts. There's no arbitrary threshold where we say now it's important enough for us to investigate. We're investigating because it's an alert, and alerts are bad. So we investigate them all, regardless of criticality. And if you're in the market for MDR, or you're currently talking to MDRs, or you have one, I would challenge you to ask them how they resolve every alert and why it's not important. And then ask them about the SLAs as well and say, hey, are they contractual? Do you feel financial pain if you violate them? How do I even know if you violate them, right? I'm going to show you all that in a demo after this last poll question. What is the threat that keeps you up at night? And if it's other, drop it in the chat. But unprotected assets, missing EPP and EDR coverage, which Critical Start absolutely has a solution for that under our managed cyber risk reduction announcement that we made at Black Hat. Lack of 24/7 operations for after hours threats. We absolutely show the percentage of threats that hit before and after hours. Skilled attackers avoiding detections through medium and low alerts. Again, we're resolving 100% of those alerts. And then other. And if it is other, I expect to see some chat. Looks like in the poll so far, 2 votes for 24/7 operations, another couple of votes for medium and low alerts, and then unprotected assets. We all know about that one machine that's back in a closet, covered in dust. Nobody's looked at it in years. Nobody patches it. Don't look at it. Don't even think about it. The attacker looks at it. Attacker thinks about it. Attacker finds it. That's their central point, right? And we've seen this happen in M&As too, where not every asset is protected. The attacker's already laying in wait. They knew about the acquisition months ago, and now they're just waiting for AD Federation. So be sure to answer this one. Looks like we got a few more votes in, about the same. Looks like a lot of emphasis on 24/7 operations and skilled attackers using mediums and lows. So we do anticipate some level of follow-up. Hopefully you guys are interested in learning more about how we do what we do. Now, if there's additional Q&A, please drop it in the chat. I'll try to monitor that. Misconfigurations, I agree with that. Biggest threat's the one I don't know. Yep, the unknown. Definitely a big one. And then unknowns, yep, Roosevelt, I agree with you. There's certainly a lot of threats out there. It's surprising we get any sleep. But for me, it's always the attacker that's already inside that I don't know about. And that's typically the medium low alerts using those lull bins. Now, let me pivot real quick into our console. I'm going to walk through this kind of quickly because we only have about 7-8 minutes left. But again, always happy to go through this in more depth, and also happy to crack open the mobile SOC where you'll see all the information I'm about to show you in mobile format. And again, everything that I'm going to show you is transparent. There's no difference between what our analyst sees and what your analyst sees, with the exception of our analysts see all data, your analysts see your data. So on this first dashboard, this is the analyst level dashboard. This is, hey, I have 10 minutes before my next meeting. What can I do to be impactful? Let's look at critical systems with alerts, right? If not, let's look at this MITRE framework down here and look at the alerts that are assigned to me and start furthest to the right, right? We want to move everything back to the left. So starting furthest to the right, this is where they get into the destruction, persistence, lateral movement. So we would look at these. Going on to recent activity, this is more the dashboard you would expect to see from an MDR, where we're showing you the value that we're providing. So we start off with 77,000 events. We reduced that with the trusted behavior registry. It resulted in 74 alerts being investigated by our analyst team, and we escalated 9 of those. This is in the last week. We can blow this out to any timeline. I'll knock it out to the last 6 months. All of this is demo data. Take it with a big old grain of salt. Happy to share more production level data on one-on-one calls. So let me know if you're interested in that. Again, we do show that before and after business hours in terms of the alerts that we're receiving. This helps justify that 24/7 coverage. True positives and false positives. Anytime you see this or a priority inside of our platform, that is set by the human analysts. That is not set by Microsoft or some level of AI and ML. It's our analysts looking at it saying, hey, this is a true positive. What are we doing about it? We show you any administrative behaviors that we take, including disabling users, revoking session tokens, deleting emails, starting AV scans, host isolations. We also show you the alert workflow end to end. So, a good number of alerts came in from these different products. A lot of them were created by critical start rules. So this shows the value of our threat intelligence team, our cyber research unit, in creating native language detections, which you keep forever and always, creating those native language detections to make your products more effective at detecting malicious behavior. Lastly, we have another allusion to MITRE. This shows closed alerts. So our TAMs are going to use this, Roosevelt, what you were saying earlier, our TAMs are going to use this to identify gaps in security posture, right? If something got this far along, why? What security mechanisms failed that allowed it to get this far along? Where are there no mitigations to stop alerts from getting all the way down to command and control? Now, measuring our SLAs is good, but we also want to measure your SLAs, right? We want to be able to tell you where time is being lost. So we look at the rolling TTR, we look at combined TTR. We also look at the more granular TTR metrics. So looking at MTTR by user, based on closed alerts. So who's taking the longest to reply, as well as the alert workload. So if Miles is, taking the longest to reply, but he also has 100% of the alerts, we probably need to look at more efficiently doling those out to improve operations. Lastly, the obligatory efficiency page. So we show the calculator, which is a little bit different about our calculator. You can customize it. So if you pay your analysts, $4 an hour and they work 37 hours a day, you can put that in here. You can also remove that minimum FTE requirement for 24/7. And the calculator will be a bit more applicable to your environment. We show our TTD and TTR right up front. There's no begging and pleading for this. This is also something that's reviewed by our customer success managers on every operational review. You can get those as frequently or as infrequently as you want. We have some customers where it's quarterly. We have others where it's every other week, right? So you do get to meet with that CSM. We show you the false positive rate, and then we show you the MITRE attack matrix as far as coverage goes. Now, not a lot of time left. And again, keep the chat rolling if you have any additional questions, thoughts, comments, concerns. But I do want to look at an alert. So I'll go back and I'll look at the alerts that are assigned to me. Here we go, escalations. I got a few of them in my queue. Let's look at this one, because I know there's some PowerShell on this. this guy. So we'll crack this one open. And with this, I want to point out our analyst comments. So you may have some junior level resources. You may have some associates or some interns. This is what all of our comments look like. We give you the high level of what was observed with the details. So we see this, it was this user connecting to this IP is bad. We give you the risk. So we try to do some level of education along with our escalations. So, maybe this is embedded PowerShell and it's used for obfuscation. This one's using a web companion, looks like adware. And then most importantly, we give you what's recommended. And we try to be pretty surgical about this and really be pointed and say, hey, you need to isolate this endpoint. You're not allowing us to do so. This user looks compromised. Is this person actually an administrator? Should they be doing this during what time of day? But we want those junior level resources to be actionable, right? We want them to be able to read, understand, and respond to this alert within a minute or less. That's our goal, right? We want to drive down that attacker dwell time, and then they can do so through here. They can escalate internally. They can escalate back to us and say, this is really bad behavior, right? And then we can, we'll save this. And then we can take action through here and say, let's respond now. Let's start a full AV scan and let's request full host isolation. We execute these and bam. Now it's taken care of using APIs back into Microsoft. Again, we're not using our own things. If I look at another alert here, we'll grab one that's more user-oriented. Here's multiple RDP sessions. Now you can see CS559. This is a critical start alert. We actually wrote this alert and put it into Microsoft, put it into Sentinel KQL. And here's a hint. So if we identify some things that are good and repeatable, we'll put them in as alert hints or event hints. And then your analysts, our analysts, everybody's analysts can learn from these. Again, you see that same exact format used for the comments. And if we need to respond, you can see that we can confirm the risky user, confirm that, we'll disable their user account, we'll reset their password, and we'll revoke their session tokens. Let's execute. Yes. And boom, APIs back into the original product. So actually, Roosevelt, looks like you won. Congratulations on that last poll. So just wanted to point out the value that we're providing on top of the Microsoft Defender Security Suite. I want to thank you all for attending. We're in our last minute here. Thank you all for dialing in. I hope this was beneficial. Congratulations to our winners. Thanks again to Trevor and Microsoft for being such a great partner with us, working alongside of us. And if you have any other questions or you'd like to learn more about our service or about Microsoft, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're fairly easy to find. I'm Randy at criticalstart.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, email, or just reach out to our marketing team, contact at criticalstart.com. Thanks again. And thanks, Trevor, for helping out on this one.
Thanks, everybody.